and they showed us exactly how to fight homophobia in 1978. So I'll hand it over to them.
Thank you. I'm very proud here as a 78er to be joining this global protest, not just against Trump, but also against Turnbull. But let me just say this turn towards conservative authoritarianism in the modern era really began with the election of Abbott in 2013. I'm going to say a few words today, just a brief talk. I'm going to invite my comrade Gay as well to say a few words. We were involved in the 1970s, fighting for the rights for lesbians and gays, but not just lesbian and gays. We were concerned then, as we are now, with all minority groups in society. We know that it's our minority groups, like our LGBTIQ communities, that remain vulnerable to authoritarian conservatism. And you can see what is happening in the world today. What is happening is that we are being branded again, labelled again for who we are, manipulated in order to win and maintain power by those who have power at the moment. So I have 3 points today that I would like to make. The first point revolves around civil liberties and the right to do what we're doing today. You know why I'm proud of myself and of you today? We are protesting in public, and thank God we still have the right to some extent to do that. But you might be wondering why old 78ers or old revolutionaries like us are still speaking in public. The reason is we are waking up again to the realization that these gains that we have won can easily be lost. Let me give you an example on this case of our need to defend civil liberties. In February last year in the State Parliament of New South Wales, we were apologised to, the 78ers, for the police violence that was perpetrated against us in June 1978. We were very touched by that apology. The government at the time, under Baird, seemed to want to reach out and respect our sexual minorities. We were very moved by that apology. Do you know what happened in the following week? That same bloody Parliament, across there in Macquarie Street, that same Parliament enacted laws to restrict the right to protest. The hypocrisy of these governments, if we are not alert, the way that the society can be manipulated, we need to defend our right to protest, and that's what you are doing, that's what I am doing, that's what we must still continue to do. Let me now move to my next point. And this may be a little bit difficult to talk about, but I'm talking about identity politics and labels. I'm really worried about the way that we can be labelled so that we can be excluded again, so that we can be victimised again. At first, when I heard the term LGBTIQ communities, I could hardly even put it together. But the more that I've thought about this, because remember we've gone through the period of identity politics, the more I think we should force the privileged heterosexual community to be able to pronounce that acronym. Let me tell you why. Because embedded within the acronym LGBTIQ, there is this sense that we are not going to be labelled as one group, easily disposed of. There's a sense of diversity in that term. Let's use it and teach the privileged heterosexual community to realise that we are a diverse group, many different tribes, and we have the power in our diversity. And that's what we'll have to struggle to get across to the majority. Let me come to my final point now. And this maybe is something of a secret that I've realised over the years. Other minority groups are more easily targeted than us in some ways. Let me explain why. Political groups, ethnic groups, different genders, different faith communities, they're easily picked off. Look at the way women have been persecuted through the centuries. Look at the way different ethnic communities such as the Muslim community in Australia is now being picked off and typecast. But you know why we are different? If we are part of this proud LGBTIQ community of sexual minorities, you know what the secret of our power is? We transcend all of these boundaries. We can be found across genders, across faiths. What we need to do now is to find a way to bring these people together, but it's not easy. The previous speaker spoke about the way that the right-wing Liberal Party gay members of Parliament are sellouts. They are sellouts. What's wrong with Turnbull? What's wrong with Tim Wilson and the other members of Parliament? You know what they are? They are supine. They are supine individuals. Why can't they get the job done of marriage equality? It's something that should have been done years ago. What's wrong with you? Why are the electors in Wentworth going to vote for Turnbull again? Here is a cry to all of the voters in Wentworth. Put Turnbull last in the next election. Don't vote for him. So let me hand over now to my comrade Gay Egg.
Thanks, Mark. Thank you all for coming out today and standing in solidarity around the world. We know the 78ers stood in solidarity with Americans in 1978 when we were asked to take to the streets. We've marched in solidarity with Chechnya twice now. But first, I want to read out a poem. I read it at the last two rallies for Chechnya. This is a rally against Trump and against Turnbull, but also we want to remember that right now there are gay men being rounded up and put in prison camps. Some say they're concentration camps. There's at least 100 gay men missing in Chechnya. We don't want to let this just slip away from your consciousness. We want to keep raising attention about this. So I'm going to read this poem. It was written by my friend Marion Waller, who's since died, but I adapted it for in memory of the Chechens. For a lot of them, you know, they may have been gay men, they may have been bisexual men, they may have been married heterosexual men, they may just have been men who were just looked a little bit different, or maybe they had some land somebody wanted and they were used as scapegoats, which we've been used throughout the centuries. So I'll start with this poem. Let us install poets in hallways, instructing all who pass in our wild dance. Let us hurl our passionate words at Stalinist consulates and giggle under dunas until dawn. Let us cast drapes of pure light into forest canyons, lighting up the darkest of souls. Let us carry our wounds on trays as offerings to gods. Let us erode no bones, disturb no humming hives. Let us remember only lemons on a windowsill with birdsong. Let us arise from troubled sleep, reborn, pummeled smooth by our rainbow dreams and visions. Let our bright words be hung like butter lamps in fields across the sky. So I read this poem so that you keep in your hearts and minds that there are men, gay men, bisexual men, possibly trans men, because we're getting very little information in Chechnya being rounded up. Often in times when the system is being tested, like right now, capitalism is crumbling around the world, they look for scapegoats. They'll look for targeted minority groups. They'll cut all the services to Indigenous Australia. They'll attack Muslims in Australia. They'll attack the gay community. And this is what's happening in Chechnya. Obviously things are going wrong there and they're looking for a scapegoat. We've been scapegoated throughout time. We were scapegoated, gay men were rounded up in Nazi Germany. They were amongst the first to be rounded up. And that's where the pink triangle comes from. Lesbians were rounded up, and along with sex workers and gypsies were given the black triangle. That triangle is often never mentioned here. We are being targeted in India. At the first rally for Chechnya, a young Indian man told me about the rape of young gay men in India. There's the men who are being targeted in Banda Aceh, the men in Chechnya. But remember that we are a really strong, resilient community, and we are known to fight back. In 1969 in Stonewall, in the bar in New York, when the police came to raid that bar, for the first time we fought back. It was a really strong, gutsy lesbian and trans community who led that fight. And the anniversary of that is this month, because we're in Pride Month throughout the world. We also, in 1978, when we were asked to step up in solidarity with the Californians, we marched on the 24th of June, 1978. We marched in the morning, and then that night we got ready to have our first Mardi Gras in Sydney. We had a permit to march. We had a police permit to march, and we marched from Taylor Square. And as that young man said at the beginning, the cries were out of the bars onto the streets. That cry in particular we could use again, because there are so many of us who are in the bars drinking our sorrows, all that internalised depression. But we need to get out of the bars and we need to get active again, because we're under threat. So we fought in 78, and we fought again when the HIV/AIDS epidemic hit. We are a really strong, courageous, resilient community, and we need to step up again. We stepped up when Matthew Shepard was attacked in America, and we stepped up last year after the massacre in Orlando. We stepped up last month for Chechnya when we gathered and we did a vigil outside the Russian consulate, and again at Taylor Square. Again, I ask you, keep those men in your hearts and minds. Look out for, Canada has set up this amazing organisation, a not-for-profit called Rainbow Railroad. Have a look online and start raising money and sending it to Rainbow Railroad. Every year they get at least 80 gay, lesbian, bi, trans people out of countries where death is the penalty. They smuggle them out. It's an amazing organisation, and right now they're raising money and also getting people out of Chechnya. So just to remind you all, let's refuse to be scapegoated for being gay, for being lesbian, for being trans, for being bisexual, for being allies to our community. Right now we're standing all around the world, there are people standing up against Trump and his homophobia. We refuse to be silenced. If I could sing, if I had a choir, I've reached out to a couple of the choirs, but we didn't get very far. But if I could sing, the songs that I would have being sung today with a mass choir would be, believe it or not, Johnny Farnham, we're not going to sit in silence. We're not going to sit in fear. I would sing Human Nature's None of Us Are Free Till All of Us Are Free. I would sing L'Abbé Siffre's song, Something Inside So Strong. And I'm sure all of you have got songs that you would sing. I urge you to start getting together with people and working out actions you can take. Because if Trump stays in power, this will only get worse in America. And he is obviously influencing our government. The fact that we still don't have marriage equality today. So thank you all for turning out in the rain. We are a really courageous community.